Good afternoon, everyone. For those of you I haven't had the pleasure of meeting yet, my name is Akriti Rana. My pronouns are she, her, hers. I am the program manager of the Chamber Leadership Alliance, and today I'd like to welcome you all to the Chamber Leadership Alliance Solidarity Activism program. Today's program will feature a special panel discussion from the CLA Chamber's Affiliate Leadership Network around the topic of activism. This conversation will focus on how to actively support our diverse communities through various forms of activism, emphasizing on the importance of collective action and solidarity in our communities. This 90-minute live interactive program follows our previous sessions, which focused on acceptance and allyship. Now, I'd like to welcome the co-founder and president of the National LGBT Chamber of Commerce, Mr. Justin Nelson. Justin, welcome.
Greetings, chamber leaders. I am Justin Nelson, co-founder and president of the National LGBT Chamber of Commerce, NGLCC. I use he, him pronouns, and it is my privilege to welcome you to the final installment in our CLA Solidarity Series, today's program on activism. I think back over the 18 months that have preceded us today, and where we are, we would not be without activism. Whether it was the murder of George Floyd and all of those that have gone before and those after, whether it's been the response to heinous acts against Asian Americans in response to the COVID-19 pandemic, whether it is the true discrimination and slurs hurled at our Hispanic community over immigration and the southern border, or whether it is the nearly 50 murders of transgender Americans that have happened this year alone, most of them trans people of color. We have moved the needle. It is not enough. We must continue to do more. And we do that through activism, by standing up for our beliefs and our values and those of our fellow diverse citizens. And that's why I'm so proud of the work that we've done as a part of the Chamber Leadership Alliance and what we will continue to do in the years to come. And we've learned so much from one another. This group of 4 chambers that have worked together now for many years, I count not only as friends, but as family. And family sticks together. And today's program is going to talk about the importance of activism. And oftentimes people get the two words mixed up, activism and activist. You don't have to be a wild activist to believe in wild activism. We can do better by working together, by understanding the challenges, the opportunities, and the needs of one another's communities. So as we end this year's program, I just want to say thanks to my fellow leaders and organizations, all of our teams that have worked so hard to bring this programming to you, and the affiliate chamber leaders that have been our panelists and our experts on these issues. Thank you very much.
Thank you for joining us. My name is Ramiro Cavazos, and I'm the president and CEO of the United States Hispanic Chamber of Commerce. I am so proud and privileged to stand shoulder to shoulder with my brothers and my sister, Justin Nelson, Ron Busby, and Susan Allen in forming this incredible partnership to expand the opportunities and economic development passion that we all have for our LGBTQ community, our Black businesses, and our Asian businesses. The Latino community stands in strong alliance and solidarity to be activists in creating wealth in our communities, raising our educational attainment, our quality of life, and our knowledge through education about what can make us stronger. And with limited resources, we need one another. So being a part of the Chamber Leadership Alliance is for us an important part of our DNA at the United States Hispanic Chamber of Commerce. Our board of directors, led by Alice Rodriguez, and our 200 and 60 Hispanic chambers, our more than 5 million Latino-owned businesses, and the many hundreds of corporations that invest in our economy that form part of our membership. We all believe that we need each other, and solidarity and activism is really the new normal. And especially as we move out of the rebuilding of our economy and we move forward post-pandemic, we need to support one another and embrace one another and do it authentically and in a genuine way, not just through words. And so on behalf of the United States Hispanic Chamber of Commerce, our mission and vision is to support each of you to create wealth and prosperity, create jobs for America, and do it with the communities that have often been left out, misrepresented, or ignored completely. And so as we go after opportunities for more business, for more capital and diverse uses and sources, and also contracts and building that capacity, as we call the 3 C's, those connections are so important. A big part of our connections are the connections to each other, to one another. So on behalf of the United States Hispanic Chamber of Commerce, our staff, our board of directors, of course, believe in each of you and our membership. So we stand shoulder to shoulder with our partners, and today's session will be excellent and helpful. And we look forward to seeing you soon in person and not just virtually, but you can consider us partners that are going to go with you forward as we become activists and we engage in the solidarity that we need to support our economy's rebuilding and expansion and the contracts and capital and capacity that we need to support one another. Thank you very much.
Hello, I'm Susan Allen of the U.S. Pan-Asian American Chamber of Commerce Education Foundation, a founding member of the Chamber Leadership Alliance that was created through the generous contributions of Wells Fargo Bank throughout the last 10 years. So far, the National LGBT Chamber of Commerce, the U.S. Black Chambers, U.S. Hispanic Chamber of Commerce, and U.S. Pan-Asian American Chamber of Commerce have trained diverse chamber leaders at the national, regional, state, and local levels through 45 in-person meetings around the country. Since COVID-19, we have met 18 times virtually. 60 to 100 people gathered each time to hear from subject matter experts and learn from each other's experiences to build and grow sustainable chambers and better help our business members grow and prosper. We've trained over 700 minority and diverse chamber leaders, and 1,500 have come to learn organizational governance, program creation, membership service, fundraising, and effective administration. In 2021, we focus on creating and cherishing partnerships and allyships across diverse, unique interest groups. We also pursued acceptance, fairness, and inclusion among our respective communities and by the mainstream. Through this 10-year alliance of the country's four most established and effective national chambers of commerce for Asian, Black, Hispanic, and LGBT plus communities, we have invested our time, energy, thought leadership to this best-in-class training program and demonstrated the power of unity. Growth is not achieved by chance, but by working as one, as we have done, united by our aspirations with mutually beneficial results. Indeed, we have shown what solidarity, the coming together of minds and hearts, can accomplish. And that was what we aimed to do in the last 10 years and will do in the coming years. So as we turn the corner from the uncommon challenges of the past 22 months, we also look to a new future that is promising, where inclusion that has no color, gender, orientation, political affiliation, and irrespective of disabilities will bring real opportunity and prosperity for all. Today's program on activism will cover how to effectively support our diverse communities through learning to work together, to remove the cultural divides in different communities and raise awareness of cultural commonalities, to create respect for differences and to reduce intolerance. Please enjoy it.
Thank you, Susan. Before I welcome our moderator for the day, I would like to mention a few housekeeping items. This session is being recorded and all the CLA presentation will be uploaded in the CLA website. We encourage you to share the recording with your fellow chamber leadership. Please use the chat and Q&A function on Zoom for comments or questions. Lastly, we would like to welcome you all to the post-session discussion, which is a 30-minute networking event at the conclusion of panel discussion today. This networking event is designed for you to meet other chamber leaders and discuss what you have learned during the program today. The link for the post-session discussion has been shared in your confirmation email of this program. The link will also be reshared in the chat box shortly. Now, I'd like to welcome our moderator for the day, Ms. Zakia Larry. Zakia elevates brand, moods, and influence through media coaching, keynote speaking, brand polishing, and strategic public relations. Zakia is highly sought after media coach, on-air talent, executive producer, and award-winning public relations executive, is also the CEO of Quest Media Training, a strategic communications firm that provides interview preparedness, strategic messaging, crisis communications, and public relations. Zakia also served as the longtime director of media relations for TD Jakes Ministries and as the communications director at the U.S. Black Chambers, Inc. As an internationally booked keynote speaker, she has moved hundreds of audiences, both domestically and internationally, from the East Room at the White House to Johannesburg, South Africa. Zakia, welcome.
Akriti, thank you so much. And wow, what an amazing introduction. It was such a pleasure and a treat to hear from our chamber leaders, and I am loving the action in the chat box. So I'm looking forward to getting started here. Thank you so much. Right before I introduced our esteemed panelists, I would like to let you know that Ron Busby, President and CEO of the U.S. Black Chambers, Inc., regrets that he was not able to bring you opening remarks today, but he wanted me to let you know that on his own behalf and on behalf of the U.S. Black Chambers, Inc., he is excited about this conversation. And one of the 5 pillars of the USBC is absolutely advocacy. And advocacy translates into action and activism. The USBC has recently seen some phenomenal wins because of partnerships with our diverse organizations, including advocacy, and that would be advocating for the Jobs Investment Act that President Biden recently passed, as well as pushing for fair payment terms for small businesses. And all of these can be found at the usblackchambers.org website so that you can see what advocacy looks like for us and what advocacy looks like for all of us together. So Ron Busby said he looks forward to continuing the work with the diverse chambers here, and he thanks you for your participation. Now, since I had a chance to speak on behalf of the esteemed Ron Busby, I cannot wait to now hear from our esteemed leaders joining us today. We will be speaking to and hearing from Alejandro Cross, President and CEO of Latin American Chamber, Georgia, and Kevin Terrell Hurd. Kevin is the president of the board of directors, the Detroit Regional LGBT Chamber of Commerce. We will also hear from Saint Hung, board member of the U.S. Pacific Asian American Chamber of Commerce. I hope I got that right. The US PAC Northeast. And then we will hear from Charles O'Neill, who leads our board of directors for the US Black Chambers, Inc. Welcome to our esteemed panelists. Thank you for joining us. Here we go, US Pan Asian American Chamber of Commerce. Thank you for that. So thank you for that correction and welcome to our esteemed panelists. Wonderful. We're getting our cameras on here. And as Charles turns on his camera, I will start with the first question for you all. And as a matter of fact, if you don't mind, I'll go by the ranking I see on my screen here, and I will start out with Kevin with this very first question, if you don't mind, as we get our cameras on and we get off of mute here. So let's start with Kevin. What does the vision of activism look like in your business community?
Well, first of all, I would like to just thank the organization for bringing me here and you moderating this great panel. I'm looking forward to the discussion. The vision of activism in the Detroit area, we are gritty here. We really support one another when it comes to wanting to rebuild this city. Not too long ago, we went through bankruptcy and we've been building back better ever since. No pun intended for that. We want to make sure that we understand what political or what activism looks like in our area. So when you talk about activism as a word, the definition is policy or action using a vigorous campaigning and focused on bringing about a political or social change. When it comes to our businesses, many people, when you look at activism or activists, you think about them boycotting a business or changing a policy or being direct and confrontational about a certain issue. But as a business, as an organization that represents businesses, we can amplify the voice of the community by standing aside them as well. We can focus more so on the political aspects and the policy that is being written that hurts the community, but also hurts some of our businesses as well. And not necessarily playing both sides of the fence, but managing the expectations and understanding how we can include more people in our community into the economic prosperity that this country promises for everyone. So that's where activism and the vision of activism is in our community.
I love that angle from Detroit, and it applies across the board. Saint, what are your thoughts on what activism looks like in your business community?
First off, I want to thank the CLA and US PAC and Susan for allowing me to, take this opportunity, and thank you, Zakia, for the warm introduction. I look at activism and I break down the word. The first word in activism is act. Therefore, you must take action. And the actions that I would say to take, the optimal action is to support each business one by one. And that support looks like, I believe, first, financial literacy, knowledge, and information by teaching them what's available out there, during such a tough time in the past months, what life rafts were out there, what life preservers were out there, like the EIDL loans, like the PPP loans, like the RRF for the restaurants. And that's step one. Then empowering them with more knowledge, more support, perhaps more software and hardware to help their businesses get deep into the 21st century, or even, dare I say, advance ahead of the remainder of the mainstream market. And also, not just that, just to be forceful and proactive, because just speaking on my community, in the AAPI business owner community, a lot of them are silent. They don't want to reach out for help. I would take it a step further and say, I'm going to knock on every door possible, not just AAPI doors, but all underserved businesses, just to make sure they're okay and at least do a wellness check, as that's what we've done professionally. Thanks.
I love that. Action, wellness check, the intentionality. Alejandro, what lines are you seeing here that connects what activism looks like in your business community versus what we've been hearing here today?
Well, thank you for the invitation to the Chamber Leadership Alliance, and it's great to be here. I definitely agree with my colleagues. Here in Atlanta, we are in the birthplace of the civil rights movement. And the Latino community is fairly a new community. We arrived in the last 20 years, grew very rapidly. But it's undeniable that the path that was opened by the African American community has, led to many changes. There is a lot of work still to be done, and it is a challenge still in many fronts, to make sure that there is equity and equality for everyone. But definitely we see how that activism at one point in the civil rights movement really opened the doors, created the path for change. Right. I think that a lot of times the business community is criticized because we're seen as we don't do enough. But as someone mentioned, we do it differently. And I think that's what's important. Everybody has a role to play. The business community tends to work more towards finding common ground and a dialogue and that way influence the changes that at the end of the day, we're all looking for.
Right. Charles, your thoughts. What does activism look like in your business community? Thank you for that, Alejandro.
Thank you, Zakia, and good afternoon, everyone. I think, as you noted in Ron's remarks, there's a reason that our first pillar of service is advocacy, because we understand the critical role that businesses play at a micro level. What I often, in my interaction with local chambers of commerce, I remind them that oftentimes it is business owners who have the latitude, the bandwidth, as we would call it now, to be on the forefront of issues. They can attend a city council meeting, they can attend a county commission meeting, they can attend a school board meeting and give voice to those folks who may not have the room in their schedule to attend to those kinds of functions. And so clearly we see the interaction that our organizations have had, again, as you mentioned in Ron's remarks, in fostering change at the national level because of our active engagement with each other. And so we know, again, in Black business, the first Black newspaper, 1827, was a business, and it launched the crusade, if you will, that manifested itself as was noted about the civil rights movement 100 years later in America. And so we know that A.D. Nixon's taxicab company shuttled people around in Montgomery in 1955. And so it was business owners that took the lead in making sure, again, that the voiceless had a voice. And so the work, again, that our organizations have managed to do together is the furthest or the latest extension of that kind of activism.
I like where you're going with this, Charles, the latest extension of that activism. And also something Alejandro pointed out is that there is still work to be done. And so I'd like to put together those two thoughts, and I'm going to come back to you, Kevin. We just talked about what advocacy looks like in the business communities in Detroit, in our Hispanic business communities, in our Asian, in our Black and African. We know what it looks like. Okay, my brilliant friends, we want to know, how do you measure it, right? If you can give us one metric that each of you uses to measure advocacy from your purview, and let's do this, two things here. Will you give me one metric you use to measure the advocacy efforts to know if it's successful? And then also, what is the goal of that advocacy effort? And you can feel free to flip those. Let's do the goal. And then how do you measure that?
Well, nobody's
On
gonna
mute,
jump
Mr.
in.
Kevin. Well, Kevin's jumping in. He's on
Okay,
mute.
good.
Yep, sorry. I want to highlight the, I think if you're on mute had an IPO, we'll all be rich right now, right? I want to hop in here and just say, to measure activism, I'm going to highlight an organization by the name of Fair Michigan. And they had to, they had to raise money and they had to get signatures for a petition to amend our Elliott Larson Act, which is our Civil Rights Act here in Michigan, to include LGBT sexual orientation and gender identity into our Civil Rights Act to protect them against racial LGBT discrimination in the workplace, as well as housing accommodations and credit. And we measure that by the amount of money that we raise. We measure that about the pure amount of signatures that we do, as well as the amount of organizations and businesses that are signed onto their brief to present to the Michigan State. We are very proud to say that the Detroit Regional LGBT Chamber of Commerce recently just signed America's brief that will be presented to the Michigan State Supreme Court this week. And so we're going to measure that to make sure that our state adopts the SCOTUS decision of Bostock last year. And what we want to make sure that we do is we focus on the social media presence, the shares, the impressions, the engagement inside of our posts, the calls that we receive for people wanting us, the calls that our Congresswomen and men receive on advocating for those changes in policies. And so those are some metrics that we measure and use.
Got it. Saint, how do you measure? And what's the goal of activism?
I would say the goal of activism is to directly serve the underserved and give them a better shot. My definition directly would be providing service face-to-face in the language that they speak in a friendly manner. And we measure that in the short term by every single phone call that comes in, because every phone call that comes in, we solve a problem. Every single client that we board, we're putting them in a better situation. Every dollar of volume that goes away from a heartless, faceless, careless to the community financial organization into a minority-owned financial organization, that's a win, every single dollar. And in the long term, how you track that is, just to give an example, I won't mention the name of the bank, it's the largest financial institution in the US. When I was working there, I saw 25 years ago, zero minority-owned financial institutions in my region. And 25 years later, I'm proud to say that I see them springing up one by one. I'm a lucky founder and owner of one said financial institution. And every time I see any immigrant or minority-owned financial institution, that is measuring our success and our empowering other minorities. And just throwing it out there, I'm very happy to seed the investment and the entrepreneurship of said financial organizations, no matter what background. Thanks.
Fantastic. Alejandro.
Well, I think that, at the core of activism, the goal is change. Change something that is wrong, change something that is not equal. And I'll give you one example. One thing that we are very active about is making sure that Latino business and minority business in general have opportunities, equal opportunities to do business with government, to do business with corporate America. And that's measured very simply by the number of contracts that are awarded to minority business enterprises, and making sure that everybody has the same opportunities to compete in a fair way, right? And that is one area that I think a lot of the chambers, we work day in and day out to make sure that our businesses have those opportunities and access to those opportunities in the same conditions.
Absolutely. Charles, round us out here.
Well, I think Alejandro hit it right on the head. I don't think it makes well, I can't say it doesn't make sense, but I'll say that I think our maintaining focus on who we are, what we are, we're business advocacy organizations. And so one critical measurement of our success as organizations has to be benefit to our members or the people that we work for. So I measure by, as Alejandro said, have my members benefited from our activism in the marketplace? Very fortunate in the Black community. We got a rich landscape of advocacy kinds of organizations, from Greek letter organizations to civil rights organizations. And so we can measure our success by the rate at which, I think Kevin mentioned something like that, at the rate at which they ask for our assistance or ask for our voice added to theirs. And so when we are called on by our legislative Black caucus here in the state of Texas, or if we're called on by a local NAACP chapter to lend our voice to theirs, then we can say that the addition of our voice amplifies theirs. And so that's a clear measurement of our success.
Fantastic. Thank you. These are all incredible insights and metrics that I hope our audience is taking down. And before I get to the next question, let me take a little bit of heat off of you. I just want to say hello to our audience here. You know, Brianna, Matthew, hi and welcome. Melissa says happy holidays to everyone. Happy holidays to you, Melissa. Isn't this a great way to go into what a lot of us hold as the holiday season? And then also panelists, I want to let you know your words are resonating. We have a lot of kudos here. Karen, Susan, thank you so much. But also we have, and let me jump into this. Adrian said, loves the point that business owners can take their flexibility and act when it comes to policy and community and being those voices. And Adrian, you hit that nail right on the head, because it takes all of us. And so audience, please stand by, because we will be furthering the conversation with you. And with that, now that our panelists had 10 seconds to breathe, let's put them right back in the hot seat. Was that fair? Was that an easy transition for you? Let's get right back in this frying pan, my friends. Incredible steps here that you're laying out for us. Now, let's get into some brass tacks a bit, okay? We all represent diverse communities and organizations, and yet we have a common goal, and that's fantastic. As we are furthering contributing to our various groups' goals and missions, how two parts, you know, I love a two-parter. Part one, how can we be more vigilant that we are not marginalizing each other or the other, right? I think that's super important. And how do we account for full inclusion in those other areas? And I'll repeat that question. As we are pushing in our own diverse realms, and there is success crossover, how do we ensure and how do we remain vigilant that we are not further marginalizing each other in these pursuits? And then also, how do we account for full inclusion among our diverse groups? Kevin, you ready to jump into this one?
I'm ready.
All right.
Great question. And I want to say this. If we focus on writing policies and building organizations that focus on serving the most marginalized in our community equitably, that will start the process of moving us forward together. We cannot leave anyone behind. So that's actually the answer to actually kind of both questions. If we lead with inclusion, everyone will be included. We also have to realize that this pie of the economy is not a small size. We can bake this pie as big as we want it. That's not, unique. I heard it from Justin Nelson. So just give him his flowers while he's here. So I really want to just make sure that if we write policy and build organizations that focus on the most marginalized in our communities and the most vulnerable in our community, we can actually a rising tide lifts all boats, right? But if we do it equitably, they'll all rise to the same kind of level, and they'll all get what they needed and what they need in order to have an equal and equitable opportunity to be a part of this economy.
Powerful. Saint, I see you nodding here. Please share.
Yes, I couldn't agree more with Kevin. To be vigilant about being all inclusive is key. I think I recognize every single chamber and every single organization here as having been somewhat involved in the recent Community Navigator program. And I'll just speak for myself though. In this recent program, when we started making marketing, started doing email blasts, started doing Instagram or YouTube, not only AAPI business owners reached out to us, other business owners reached out to us. And it's important just to realize these are people that need help. There's no turning people away that need help. We're here to help everybody in the community. It doesn't matter your orientation or background. If we can help you out, if we can give you technology, if we can help train you on financial literacy, then we have to. And that goes for hopefully all of us.
Absolutely. So I would like to touch on that point, Saint. I can say with the USBC, we have locked arms with you in that approach. We absolutely agree. And
Yep.
Charles will expound upon this question right before we get to Alejandro. But I will say, from a personal experience, 1 week ago, I got a phone call from a young woman whose business was about to close. She was just frantic and stressed, and all of us are about resources and advocacy. This particular woman was not a member of the US Black Chambers, and she shared that she is Hispanic and she spoke very little English. And we sent her to programs that all of us have been sharing with our members, right? And then also directed her to other chambers that could better support her. But she also got grant assistance with our team right there on site on the phone. And so it didn't come down to membership. It didn't come down to identity. It came down to this chamber alliance. And so Saint, you just really illustrated exactly what this is. And I wanted our people, meaning everyone on this at this event, to see what behind the scenes looks like. So thank you so much for shining a light on that. Alejandro, how can we be vigilant to make sure we're not marginalizing each other?
Oh, we need to remember that the things that unite us are way more than those that separate us. And Saint was mentioning some of the issues that their members have and the services that they provide, and those are exactly the same issues that our members have and the same services that we provide. We have business problems. These are not Latino problems. These are not African American problems. This is not Asian American problems. We have business problems. And by working together, what we're doing here and the work that the Chamber Leadership Alliance, I think, to me, all of the programs are always great speakers, great information. But the most important thing is the opportunity to get to know each other and to share experiences and share resources and learn from each other. And I think that way, we are making sure that, as Kevin mentioned, this rising tide is lifting all the boats equally. And I think that is very, very important, never to lose sight of that.
Charles, lastly, how can we not marginalize each other and assure we account for full inclusion?
I think I think it makes sense for us to acknowledge, number one, that there's a reason that we have distinct organizations that have been born to address unique sets of challenges, number one. I think it would make sense, and again, this CLA has proved, Alejandro's, again, his point that there are there are enough commonalities in the markets or in the segments that we serve that we can address business challenges. But even with that long-standing relationship between our organizations, and again, I can speak for Texas and particularly in Dallas, where I cut my chamber teeth. We had a long-standing relationship with the Dallas Hispanic Chamber, Dallas Asian American Chamber of Commerce. Here at the state level, clearly the same dynamic. We work closely with Texas Association of Mexican American Chamber of Commerce. but I would not dare to speak to the very unique challenges are faced by Hispanic-owned businesses. And so what I can do best is say, refer people to the experts in those issues. And that's how we undergird our organizations by saying, oh, no. We've got real, as SMEs, we've got subject matter experts in that. Those are our friends, and they can speak specifically to the issues that are before our communities. And so that, again, I think lends itself to the inclusion, so that if I'm at a table and I see somebody's missing, then I have someone I can call on because I have a relationship with them, and we can get everybody at the table.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I love that. Thank you for sharing the perspective. I think sometimes it can be confusing for people. How can we advocate separately but still be together? And you all just walked us through that roadmap. There are individual challenges, but very core goals in mind. So thank you for that. Okay, we're landing the plane a bit here, but I have a couple of more questions. And if we have time, I'll take a couple of questions from our registrants. So what are the most critical changes that we must make to face the future effectively? What are the most critical changes we must make to face the future effectively?
Yeah, I don't think necessarily that it changes. I see us navigating in a direction that is going to be dangerous for the future of the United States. And I think the first and foremost, the thing that we have to do is save our democracy. It's being attacked right now. And I think we need to realize and focus on the value of the vote, that most charismatic leaders are not the most effective. And so we need to make sure that they are understanding of the single parent, the single woman that has 3 children, just trying to just survive on a part-time job. We need to, be focused in on the student that graduates with over $100,000 worth of student loan debt, and figure out how we can fix that, and how are they going to actually afford a house or invest in their business if they are, already, 10 years in debt for anything, right? So I think we need to focus on fixing the system and not necessarily be upset about the system that we're in, capitalism. That's what we are in, right? How can we make it more economical and more equitable for everyone to be a part of it, and it work for everyone, instead of complaining about it all the time? How can we fix it, right? And I think those are some of the changes: recognizing the issue and being willing to change with the times.
Saint, what are your thoughts on what are those critical changes we need to face the future?
I have to agree with Kevin about the attack on democracy, but I won't go into that. However, we do need to accept that we are in a capitalism. And as a result, that's why financial literacy is so important. And I think each of us need to take it upon ourselves to find these small businesses that can help with a training session and education about what subject matter is out there and what government opportunities are out there, what resources are out there. Above and beyond that, I think our information, what is right, what is wrong, facts are being attacked. So every individual American in general needs to check 2 or 3 sources to get the right information, because information is very unclear with what's going on the internet. And that said, I also think that technology is huge right now, because this whole marketplace, our whole macroeconomy has significantly changed, where going to a restaurant, ordering, paying, getting your food is now a completely different process. Even going to a deli, grocery store, pharmacy, contactless payments are huge. And you need to find the right people that can get you that technology. Heck, even get you that technology for free. So yeah, yeah, that's in a nutshell what I think needs to change.
Adrian saying you're hitting the nail right on the head there, Saint. Thank you for
Adrian.
weighing in. Yeah, absolutely. Alejandro, what are these changes we must make to face the future effectively?
I think that one of the saddest things right now is the polarization that we have in many fronts, and the fact that we are not able to talk to each other, to come to a middle ground, to an understanding. I think business owners by nature, negotiate, right? And they are willing to give a little, but they're also expect to receive. And I think that that's missing. I think that's the change that we need to do right now is to be able to have those conversations with people that think differently from us, and come to an understanding and come to a solution. I think that in many cases, we both want a solution to a problem. We just see the problem differently and have different ideas. So I think that's number one. And number two is if this pandemic shows something, is the importance of technology. Businesses that were able to pivot and use technology were able to continue to service their clients, to continue to sell their products or services. Those who didn't have that capability were left with a closed store, and it's been harder for them to recuperate. So I agree 100% with what Saint said. Technology is now changing. I mean, we are across the country in different cities, and we're able to get together and come to this discussion. We work differently than how we worked 2 years ago. Our entertainment is different. When we go to a restaurant, we don't even get a menu anymore, right? And you don't get the check. Everything is on your phone. You can order and get it delivered from your favorite restaurant. All of that is changing and is being driven by technology. Now, I will say that not all of those changes are perfect, and some of them it need to be worked out. For instance, the fees the restaurant pay for those applications or delivery services, are too high. But the technology is there and the capabilities are there, and the marketplace is going to bring more options eventually. So I think that those are the two main changes that we face for the future.
Charles, round us out here.
Well, first thing came to my mind was where's a good magic wand when you need one, right? So if we're really going to address this deal, we'd have a wish list out there of how we might address what we have to not be afraid of acknowledging is that in the broader community, I'll say that there are at least 74 million people who don't agree with us, and that at least half of our government, our US Congress, probably does not agree with the sentiments expressed on this panel. That's a real challenge, because those are things that shape and mold opinions in the rest of the economy, or the rest of the marketplace. And so we can't fail to acknowledge that there's this thing out there that does not agree with our perspectives, which again fuels the need for our activism, right? And so again, our demonstration here, 5 organizations that have come together to ensure that perspectives that don't get traction in the main are legitimized, number one, and that we have demonstrated again across a period of time that working together on those common issues, that we can make expressions that make sense again to this other group of folk who may not agree with us in a knee-jerk situation. And so I think continued conversations like we have among ourselves, clearly defining some goals that make the most sense for all of us, all of the people that we work for, and then Kevin has been stressing, I think from his first comment, policy, policy, policy. I think that's important. If in fact we're going to affect change in the marketplace, it will probably be based in some shift in policy. And so if we are really, really, really focused on the things that are going to make the most, or settle down to make the most sense for all of the people that we work for, it will be policy driven, and our activism will fuel those changes in policy.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for sharing that. And we may have time for one more question. So let's pivot into taking action and how we can galvanize. The question is, how can we create a campaign and take direct action to create equitable change in our community? How do we create a campaign to take direct action to create equitable change in our community? And because we are short on time here, only those who just have a burning desire to address this question can weigh in. I won't force the round robin here. So if you'll just come off mute if you want to address this one, how can we create a campaign and take direct action to create equitable change in our community? Kevin is off mute. Oh,
okay, I'll jump in.
Let's do it, Saint.
The first thing I gotta say is you just have to do what you think is right. And that's, as a business owner, I'd like to illustrate it. For example, during Hurricane Harvey in Houston many years ago, the president was just flying in on Tuesday, the then president just flying in on Tuesday, patting himself on the back about how well FEMA's doing. I was there Monday picking out debris and helping business owners rebuild, getting contractors in the businesses, quoting how to rebuild their businesses that were flooded. That's what I was doing. I was not caring what was happening in politics. Same thing in COVID. COVID in New York being locked down in ground zero, masks. There was a big lockdown. I imported masks. There was an import shutdown. I didn't care. My wife was like, are you going to get fined? And then I drove with my colleagues to hospitals to deploy masks. That was what was right. That didn't feel right. I mean, politically, it didn't feel right, but the right thing to do was to save the doctors. And then lastly, even after the masks, after the initial COVID scare, we created a loan help desk because no business accounts were being open in the middle of April, in the middle of COVID lockdown. What we did was we pivoted our business and we said, who needs help? Let's create social media. Let's create marketing. Call us right now. We will help you get your loan done. We will charge you $0. You don't have money right now to pay an accountant. Maybe you don't understand the legalese. We are here to help you. We will charge you $0 and get the job done. So sorry, I had to jump in. It felt like it was right. Thank you.
No apologies. This is what we're looking for. Yes, yes, yes. Thank you. This is on the ground insight. So how do we create that campaign to take direct action? We were seeing some direct action. What about the campaign? How do we do that for equitable change in our community?
I heard some examples of how businesses and business leaders have taken action even before government, and that is the beauty of the business community, is that business owners provide the support and provide, in many cases, the resources and have the resources to act even before government. And businesses have expertise and capabilities to act more nimbly and faster in many cases, especially when the help is needed, like when Saint was describing some of those examples of things that they did. The business community took upon themselves to provide food and different types of assistance to people that had no access to food, that had lost jobs, that had that needed assistance. And a lot of businesses pivoted and changed, put a pause on their actual business and started doing different things to support the community. And I think that's the beauty. I think that businesses definitely can lead an effort and can lead a campaign and to make change, to affect change. And I think that it's a difficult questions to answer, that how can we create a campaign that is effective, because we have many examples when businesses have been effective creating change. but they have used different tools. And so I think it depends on what it's being tried to what are the businesses trying to change? What is it that they try to influence? And that will make, you know, it will dictate what is the best course of action. So.
And if I may, just really quickly, I know we're over time, but all of this and what's saying, great job for what you did, do what's right and make that, you know, social change. But what this is that and I know this is going to be a weird pun, but we are in the holiday season, right? And what your business did was practice basically what I see are equivalent principles of Kwanzaa, right? Mm-hmm. The collective bargaining, the unity, the purpose, the faith, the self-determination that we all kind of need to practice all year round instead of the last 7 days of the year. And if we continue to do that as business owners and as community members, we will have a more equitable city, equitable state, and a more equitable nation.
Absolutely, absolutely. Charles, did you want to weigh in on this one?
You know, I got opinions about everything. Yes, ma'am. I want to, you know, I said, you know, I was just thinking about how, again, a segment of our nation's population has kind of decided that patriot was theirs, right? And that, so I'm saying we could start a campaign called E Pluribus Unum. You know, out of one, you know, one voice out of many, right? And we, again, this relationship, the CLA relationship with corporate partners that have supported us through forging these relationships is the demonstration that we need to show the rest of the nation. It's going on right in front of your faces. We're proof that working together on common goals for common, you know, for a common objectives for everybody, you know. And so if they can have patriotism, we can have unity. Our E Pluribus Unum, and it's just ours, and that's a whole campaign. And that's your expertise there, Zakia. You know, you can take that and run with it, and I won't charge you for it. You know.
Thank you.
You know.
No,
so that's just off the top of my head.
No, and that's phenomenal because that campaign and I was wishing I was a panelist with this question, but absolutely everyone has been demonstrating action, but also mindset and intention, principles. And then Charles, you put that wonderful cap on top with the campaign of it. And I think that by selecting core pieces of core cornerstones, say that 3 times fast, selecting cornerstones that we all rally behind, and we already have them. Access to capital, right? We all have them in our mission statement. We all have them in how we do everyday business, and then put a cap on top of that and push it forward. So be it the out of many one, right? Mm-hmm. But I think that having something visible to galvanize people around the things we are already doing, not reinventing the wheel. All of us have stood behind and making sure in different ways that we have been holding the administration accountable for releasing data and being able to track and award contracts going to minority-owned firms, not just Hispanic, not just Asian, not just minority-owned firms. So we're doing the work. And I think from my purview, having been a communications vet for several years now, is that when the work is done, if you can galvanize those actions and results and communicate that fosters unity, it fosters trust, and it then we get more support from people who can fund and people who can join and roll up their sleeves along with us. So with that point, let me grab a quick question from a registrant. So this is a perfect segue, actually. We've talked about corporate partners. I just talked about galvanizing and people who can fund, right? A little bit of context. The question, and this is from Tyler Prescott with Upstate South Carolina LGBT plus Chamber and the National LGBT Chamber of Commerce. So Tyler asks, how do you respond to activists who critique chamber work as profit-driven allyship? And you know, the context here is targeted inclusion of the gay community or other minority communities viewed in a critical lens, because it often seems to pertain to the more critical members, more financially affluent members of those communities. I'll take that a step further, Tyler. Let me build on this. Often you hear our chambers talk about corporate sponsors, corporate support as well. So how do you respond to activists who create chamber work as profit-driven allyship?
I guess I'll hop in here because it's coming from, I guess, a question from my community. We are in a profit-driven capitalist society. I think there was a lot of business stories about pride in specific, about companies and corporations just slapping a rainbow on products and just saying that we're supporting the LGBT community. And then even on June 30th, all that goes away and you're in July. And I think the intention of corporations and celebrating pride specifically or LGBT supported events has been commercialized. And I think even when the unfortunate murder of George Floyd, that has been commercialized in some instances as well. And we need to really make sure that it's intentional and that we're focused on the intentionality and the true empathy of what truly happened here in America and what's continuously happening every single day. I think when you're talking about profit-driven allyship, I think it's more so that businesses need to be profitable in order to be a business. I think that's focus 1A. And then what does the business owner do with those profits? Do they reinvest in the community that they serve? Do they hire the people who are local around their brick and mortar? And it's up to the chambers to actually say, well, now you are profitable. What does the community benefit? We also need to talk to the developers in our cities that are gentrifying our neighborhoods and displacing our residents that have been there for over 40, 50 years. And really hold them to the fire about developing these new condominiums and places that no one in that area can actually afford. And then really asking them, well, where's the community benefit when they're doing contracts with the city and municipality areas? And then not putting that, really trying to actually do that community benefit of 51 employees within that state or municipality when they're developing that particular housing development or whatnot, but then not putting the fine inside their budget just to say, okay, we're going to just put in our budget because we know who we're going to hire, right? And so it's that intentionality, is not being vindictive, is not playing that game, is being like, okay, no, we're really going to try our best to reach this community benchmark that this city wants us to do. We're really going to hire the Detroiters within this area. We're really going to hire and train those individuals within this jurisdiction. So it's more so about walking the walk, but talking the talk. It's more so about walking the walk instead of talking that talk. And I think when it comes to donating to nonprofits and things of that nature, that is great. But give us money, but then also work with us in order to bridge the even gap, because there are always a gap to be filled when it comes to a capitalist society. There always will be a gap. The government can only go so far. The community can only go so far. Businesses is the one that's really in the middle that can actually fill those gaps. Help us grow so we can fill those gaps on both of our sides.
Absolutely. Help us grow so that we can fill those gaps. And, to put a bow on this part as we transition out, Kevin, that's absolutely how we hold businesses accountable. And I've been working with corporate partners for quite a long time. And one of the things I share when people reach out to the USBC with something similar, Tyler, to your question, responding to activists who critique chamber work specifically as profit-driven allyship, at the end of the day, we got to keep the lights on. Right. So in order for us to go out and be at the Capitol and have a call center to process people's loans and help them to do that, it takes personnel, and we're creating jobs along the way. And so there's a way to track that on the chamber side as well. So thank you for illuminating that. That was very powerful here. So at this point, to our esteemed panelists, I just want to thank you so much for letting us get in your brain here for free, but also making sure that you're galvanizing us and taking us along this journey to a brighter future together and in our respective communities. So thank you so much to Kevin, Alejandro, Saint, and Charles. And a big thank you to Akriti for allowing this conversation and allowing me to be a part of it. And now over to you.
Thank you, Zakia. Thank you so much for moderating today's panel discussion. And a thank you, panelists, for sharing your insightful view on today's topic, which was on solidarity and activism. Please fill out the post-session survey, which you will all receive in your inbox. The Chamber Leadership Alliance is at the forefront of the equity movement, showing that investment in diverse leaders can generate powerful results in economic opportunities and scalable, equitable strategies for all business communities. We look forward to seeing you all next year with more programming. Please visit chamberleadershipalliance.org to learn more about CLA and its future programs.